Alright, what's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be breaking down the NBA slate for Wednesday, March 1st. Before we get into the slate breakdown, if you guys want to know how my lineup did from last night, be sure to follow me on Twitter at the DFS_GOAT. When I make my video public in the morning, I will also post on Twitter how my lineup did the night before. So be sure to follow me on Twitter if you want to know how my lineups do. I'm still going to be selling lineups, so if you want to get lineups from me, be sure to message me on Twitter and we can negotiate a price. I did give out prices in yesterday's video, but those prices aren't set in stone at the moment, so we can negotiate things and find a price we both agree on. So message me on Twitter if you want my lineups. I'll try to get the lineups to you at least an hour before lock, and I'll be sure to message you if we have to make any changes. But yeah, let's just go ahead and get started with this breakdown. Alright, starting off at point guard, your most expensive point guard on the slate is James Harden. He gets a bad matchup against the Clippers. Chris Paul's a really good defender. Harden is $62, which is very expensive, and this is an 11-game slate, so I don't think I'm going to be on Harden. Obviously, you never want to fade Harden because he could go off any night, but when it's an 11-game slate and there are other studs with better matchups, I don't think Harden's going to be somebody I target on this slate. John Wall against the Raptors, I like that matchup for Wall. Kyle Lowry is not going to play, so Wall will be guarded by either Corey Joseph or DeMar DeRozan. And Wall should excel in both of those matchups, so if you want to pay up at point guard, I really like Wall. He's definitely in play even at $51. He should be able to get you at least 50 fantasy points in this matchup, and it should be able to pay off that price tag, so I like Wall. Isaiah Thomas against Cleveland, I really like that matchup, but Thomas is really expensive at $48. With Avery Bradley returning, that really hurts Thomas, and he is overpriced in my opinion, so I'm not going to be on IT. He's overpriced on Yahoo. I'm not sure what his price is on other sites, but on Yahoo's, he's overpriced in my opinion. He hadn't been able to pay off that price tag, so I'm not going to be on IT because of his price. This is a really good matchup though, but he's just way too expensive in my opinion. Chris Paul against Houston, I really like that matchup for Paul. His price has dropped a little bit. In the 2 games after Paul returned from injury, he put up 32 and 54 fantasy points and played 32 and 40 minutes. Paul is definitely in play even at $44. He is one of the best overall point guards in this league. He'll get you points, rebounds, and assists. So if you want to pay up for point guard, I really like Paul as well. This is a really good up-and-pace matchup for the Clippers. He will be guarded by Patrick Beverley, which isn't a great matchup, but Paul should still be able to dominate and get you at least 40 fantasy points. So if you want to pay up at point guard, I really like Chris Paul as well. Kyrie Irving against the Celtics, I really like that matchup for Irving. Isaiah Thomas is one of the worst defenders in the league. So if you want to pay up at point guard, I really like Irving as well. Even at $41, he should be able to pay off that price tag. Drew Holiday against Detroit, that's not a great matchup. Detroit is pretty solid against the point guard, but Holiday's going to see a usage bump in this game because Boogie is suspended. So it's pretty much going to be Drew and AD running the show tonight. So I like Drew at the mid-range. He's definitely in play. His price has decreased a little bit, and he should be able to pay off that $34 price tag with no Boogie. He's going to have to score a lot more. So I like Holiday at the mid-range. Dragic against the Sixers, don't think I'm going to go there. If I'm attacking the mid-range, I'm going to just take Holiday for $1 more. Don't think I'm going to be on Dragic. Jeff Teague against San Antonio, don't like that matchup either. If I'm attacking that price range, I'm going to try and find the extra dollars to get to Holiday, so I'm not going to be on Teague. Ricky Rubio against Utah, that's a terrible, slow-paced matchup. Utah plays really good defense, so I'm not going to be on Rubio. He has been really killing it lately, but this is a terrible matchup against the Jazz, so I don't think I'm going to be on Rubio today. Dennis Schroeder against Dallas, that's a good matchup defensively, but Dallas does play at a really slow pace. Schroeder is still underpriced in my opinion, so even in a slow-paced matchup, I like him at only $27. He shouldn't have a problem paying off that cheap price tag. He's been crushing value lately. So if you want to attack the mid-range, I like Schroeder at only $27. This is a slow-paced matchup, but he's just way too cheap. D Rose against Orlando, I really like that matchup for Rose. Rose has had to step up and play heavy minutes ever since Brandon Jennings got waived. Monday against Toronto, Rose played 40 minutes and put up 30 fantasy points. He's really cheap at only $24. If you're wanting to attack the mid-range, I like D Rose. He is one guy I don't like to play in cash games just because he is risky, but with no Brandon Jennings, Rose is really going to have to play heavy minutes, so I think he's in play for cash and tournament. You obviously have to worry about injury risk when rostering D Rose, but I don't think that keeps him out of being in play. I still like this matchup, and that price tag's really intriguing, so I like D Rose at the mid-range. George Hill against Minnesota, don't think I'm going to go there. If I want to attack this price range, I'm just going to pay up for Schroeder or Rose. Not going to be on Hill on this slate. Underhill, I really like Lou Williams against the Clippers. Williams is really cheap at only $21, and he's been killing it ever since he got traded to the Rockets. In his 3 games with the Rockets, he's played 25, 26, and 28 minutes and put up 34, 28, and 38 fantasy points. Like I said, he is really cheap at only $21, and his minutes are starting to trend up. So I really like Lou Will at the mid-range. He is definitely in play against the Clippers. He shouldn't have to worry about Chris Paul defense. He'll probably get a bunch of run against the second unit. So I like Lou Will at the mid-range. He's definitely in play. One guy I like for tournaments is Elfrid Payton against the Knicks. I wouldn't use Payton in cash games just because he is really inconsistent. But Payton does have really good upside. Saturday against Atlanta, he played 27 minutes and put up 46 fantasy points. Like I said, he is really inconsistent, so I wouldn't use him in cash. But in this matchup against the Knicks, he does have 30 to 40 point upside. D Rose is not a good defender, so Payton could go off in this matchup, so I like him for tournaments. And another cheap point guard I like is Corey Joseph. Kyle Lowry is out indefinitely, so Joseph is going to step up and play heavy minutes every night. In the 3 games he's played with Lowry out, he's played 36, 33, and 33 minutes and put up 26, 25, and 17 fantasy points. He is really cheap on Yahoo at only $12. I'm not sure what Joseph's price is on other sites, but on Yahoo, he is really cheap at only $12. All he has to do is get you at least 20 fantasy points to pay off that price tag, and he shouldn't have a problem doing that against Washington. They play up in pace, and they're not good defensively. So if you're wanting to pay down at point guard, Joseph's one guy I would target. He's going to play heavy minutes with Kyle Lowry out, and he should be able to pay off that cheap price tag, so I like him. That's pretty much it for point guard. Let's go ahead and move on to shooting guard. Your top shooting guard on this slate is DeMar DeRozan. He gets a good matchup against the Wizards. This is going to be an up-and-pace game for Toronto. And with no Kyle Lowry, I really like DeRozan at $42. DeRozan's price is going to continue to increase with Lowry out, so you might want to play him while he's cheap. He's going to crush with no Lowry. His usage rate is over 40% when Lowry is out. So DeRozan is definitely in play. He's one of the best plays on the slate in my opinion. He's going to be locked into my lineup. With no Lowry out, DeRozan's going to crush pretty much every game. And he's way too cheap at only $42. He shouldn't have a problem paying off that price tag. So if you want to pay up at shooting guard, DeRozan's the guy you want to target. Bradley Beal in that same game. I like Beal as well if you want to pay up at shooting guard. Beal's really been consistent lately, and he's really been playing well. I think DeRozan's going to be the shooting guard you want to target on this slate, but if you're wanting to go contrarian, I really like Beal. Like I said, he's really been consistent lately, and he is pretty cheap at only $32. He's been crushing value and paying that price tag off. So I like Beal as a contrarian play. Will Barton against Milwaukee, not going to go there. Don't think Barton's really necessary on this slate. Same goes for Avery Bradley. Bradley just returned from injury, and he's playing on a minutes limit, so I'm not going to be on him. Darren Collison against Brooklyn, I really like that matchup for Collison. If you want to go contrarian and don't want to pay up for DeRozan, I really like Collison. And Collison is pretty cheap at only $21. He shouldn't have a problem paying off that price tag against the Nets. They're terrible defensively and they play up in pace. This should be a really high scoring game, so I like Collison at the mid-range. I think the optimal lineup construction at shooting guard is going to be to pay up for DeRozan, but Collison is definitely in play at the mid-range if you're wanting to go contrarian. Another guy I like at the mid-range is Gary Harris against Milwaukee. Harris has absolutely been crushing value lately. He is way too cheap at only $19. He's put up over 30 fantasy points in 4 straight games. So I like Harris at the mid-range. This is a really good matchup against Milwaukee. They're not good defensively and they play up in pace. And Harris is also way too cheap. He shouldn't have a problem paying off that price tag. So I like him at the mid-range as well. One guy you can look towards on the cheaper end is Malcolm Brogdon against the Nuggets. After Michael Beasley went down in the first half against Cleveland, Brogdon started the second half. If he starts in this game, I really like him. This is a really good matchup against the Nuggets. They're not good defensively, and they play up in pace. And Brogdon is really cheap at only $14. So if he starts, I really like him. He should play over 25 to 30 minutes, and he shouldn't have a problem paying off that cheap price tag. Another guy on the cheaper end you could target is Courtney Lee against Orlando. Lee has been very consistent lately. In his last 5 games, he's put up 23, 22, 42, 15, and 37 fantasy points. And he's played 34, 39, 36, 24, and 40 minutes. So if you want to pay down at shooting guard, I like Lee as a value play. At the minimum price, he shouldn't have a problem getting you at least 20 fantasy points, which is good for that price tag. Yeah, that's pretty much it for shooting guard. Let's go ahead and move on to small forward. Your top small forward on this slate is LeBron. He doesn't get that great of a matchup against Boston. Jay Crowder is a really good defender. But you know LeBron's going to play heavy minutes, and he's going to produce with no Kevin Love out. I like him at the top of the small forward list. I think there are other studs worth paying up for on the slate, so I don't know if I'm going to play LeBron. but he's a great play for cash games. He's always going to get the job done. He pretty much has a 40-point floor with no Kevin Love. So I like LeBron for cash games. He's just one of the most consistent players in the league. I also like Kawhi Leonard if you're wanting to pay up at small forward. This is a pretty good matchup against the Pacers. They aren't good defensively. Leonard is also one of the most consistent players in the league, so I like him for cash games as well. Andrew Wiggins against Utah. Don't think I'm going to go there. Utah's one of the best defensive teams, and they play at a slow pace. Wiggins has been on an absolute tear lately, but in this matchup and that price tag, I don't think I'm going to be on him. Carmelo against Orlando. I really like that matchup for Melo. Orlando's not good defensively against a small forward. So if you want to attack the mid-range, I like Melo at only $36. He shouldn't have a problem paying off that price tag, so I like him. Gordon Hayward against Minnesota. Don't think I'm going to go there. If I'm wanting to attack that price range, I would just find the extra dollar to get to Melo. Also not going to be on Paul George. He's going to be matched up against Kawhi Leonard, which is a terrible matchup. Leonard's one of the best defensive players in the league, so I'm not going to be on PG. Robert Covington against Miami. I really like that matchup for Covington. His price has seen an increase lately, but he's been absolutely killing it. Even with that price increase, I still think he's in play. Covington's been playing heavy minutes, and he's put up over 30 fantasy points in 5 straight games. So if you want to attack the mid-range, I like Covington. He's still pretty cheap at only $28. He shouldn't have a problem paying off that price tag. Wilson Chandler against Milwaukee. That's a good matchup. But if I'm wanting to attack that price range, I'm just going to find the extra dollar for Covington. I think Covington's a better play than Chandler. Same goes for Otto Porter. I don't think I'm going to be targeting him on this slate. I just try and find the extra dollar to get to Covington. Harrison Barnes against Atlanta. I really like that matchup for Barnes. Barnes has also been very consistent lately, and he plays heavy minutes every night. So if you want to attack somebody at the mid-range, I like Barnes. He is really cheap at only $26. He shouldn't have a problem paying off that price tag. Gallo against Milwaukee. I like that matchup for Gallo. He is really cheap as well at only $25. He shouldn't have a problem paying off that price tag. I don't think I'm going to go to him on this slate. I think there are other small forwards worth targeting. But this is a really good matchup, so Gallo is definitely in play. Another guy I like in the mid-range is Marcus Morris against the Pelicans. The Pelicans are one of the worst teams defensively against a small forward. And Morris has been very consistent lately. In his last 4 games, he's put up 37, 24, 28, and 32 fantasy points. And he's played over 30 minutes in all 4 of those games. So if you need a mid-range small forward, I really like Morris at only $20. He shouldn't have a problem paying off that cheap price tag. This is a really good matchup against the Pelicans. Like I said, they're terrible defensively against a small forward. So I like Morris at the mid-range. He's really cheap. Shouldn't have a problem paying off that price tag. One guy I like at the cheaper end is Terrence Ross against the Knicks. Ever since Ross got traded to Orlando, he's really had to step up and play heavy minutes. In the 2 games with Orlando, he's put up 26 and 39 fantasy points and played 32 and 35 minutes. This is a terrific matchup against the Knicks. They're terrible defensively against a small forward. So if you're looking for a value play on this slate, I really like Terrence Ross at only $12. With the amount of minutes he's playing, he shouldn't have a problem paying off that price tag, so I like him on the cheaper end. That's pretty much it for small forward. Let's go ahead and move on to power forward. Alright, something new I'm seeing at power forward is Giannis is the top power forward on this slate. Yahoo doesn't have multi-position eligibility, so if you want to play Giannis, you're only going to be able to play him on power forward at Yahoo. He is in play though. This is a really good matchup against Denver. They're terrible defensively and they play up in pace. So if you want to pay up at power forward, I really like Giannis. I'm not sure why he's power forward eligible on Yahoo. I don't know how a guy can go from point guard to power forward, but Giannis pretty much plays every position, so I can see why they put him there. Under him, you got Anthony Davis against Detroit. I like Davis in this matchup. Boogie is suspended for this game, so Davis is going to have to step up. So at $52, I really like AD as well if you're wanting to pay up at power forward. This is a good matchup against the Pistons. He should be able to dominate. The guy I really like, though, is Blake Griffin against Houston. This is a terrific up-and-pace matchup for the Clippers. And Griffin has been on an absolute tear lately. His last 2 games, he's put up 47 and 67 fantasy points and played 38 and 42 minutes. And Griffin's price has decreased on Yahoo, so I'm really liking Blake on this slate. He's going to be one of the studs I target. Houston doesn't really have somebody that can match up with Blake. I would imagine they would put Trevor Ariza or Ryan Anderson on Blake, and he should be able to dominate both of those matchups. So I really like Blake. He's going to be a power forward that I target on this slate, and he's going to be one of the studs I target. Paul Millsap against Dallas. I'm probably not going to go there. This is a slow-paced matchup for the Hawks. If I'm wanting to pay up at power forward, I would just go for Blake or AD, so I'm not going to be on Millsap. Kristaps against Orlando. Porzingis is expected to play in this game, and if he does play, I like him at only $31. With no Serge Ibaka for the Magic, Porzingis should be able to dominate in this matchup. So if you need a mid-range power forward, I like Porzingis. Morris against Toronto, probably not going to go there. Morris is going to have to deal with Serge Ibaka, and Ibaka's a really good defender. So I'm not going to be on Morris. If I'm looking to attack that price range, I would find the extra $2 to get to Porzingis. I would take the guy under Morris, and that's LaMarcus Aldridge. He gets a much better matchup against the Pacers. They're not good defensively against the power forward. And Aldridge has been very consistent lately, and he's really cheap at only $29. So if you need a mid-range power forward, I like Aldridge against the Pacers. Also like Serge Ibaka against Washington. Toronto has really involved Ibaka into their offense. He did have a bad game Monday against the Knicks, but before that, he put up 39 and 25 fantasy points and played 34 and 36 minutes. He's playing heavy minutes on this team, and they're relying on him to score the ball. So I like Ibaka at only $27, and I really like this matchup as well. James Johnson against the Sixers, I'm not going to go there. Thaddeus Young against San Antonio, not going to go there either. That's a really bad matchup. The guy I like at power forward on the cheaper end is Dario Saric. Saric is still way underpriced in my opinion at only $22. He's been absolutely crushing value in 5 straight games, and he's been playing heavy minutes as well. I really like Blake at the top of the power forward list, but Saric is definitely going to be someone I target at the mid-range. He is way too cheap at only $22. He shouldn't have a problem paying off that price tag with the amount of minutes he's playing. So I like Saric at the mid-range. He is definitely in play. And one cheap power forward you could target is Richaun Holmes. Holmes gets a pretty good matchup against the Heat. They're not good defensively. This is the minimum price on Yahoo, which is very intriguing. Ever since Nerlens Noel got traded to the Mavericks, Holmes has had to step up and play more minutes. In the 3 games after Noel got traded, he's put up 39, 16, and 31 fantasy points and played 26, 15, and 28 minutes. His minutes are inconsistent, so I don't think I would use Holmes in cash games, but he does have 30 to 40 point upside. So if you need a cheap power forward for tournaments, I like Holmes. Yeah, that's pretty much it for power forward. Let's go ahead and move on to center. Alright, your top center on this slate would be DeMarcus Cousins, but he is suspended for this game. So your top center on this slate is Karl Anthony Towns. He gets a really bad matchup against the Jazz and Rudy Gobert. Gobert is one of the best defenders in the league, so I'm not going to be on Towns today. If I was looking to pay up at center, I would much rather have Jokic over Towns. Jokic just gets a much better matchup against Milwaukee. Milwaukee's one of the worst teams defensively against the center. So if you're wanting to pay up at center, I would much rather have Jokic over Towns. Even at $48, Jokic can still pay off that price tag in this matchup, so I like him. Also like Hassan Whiteside against the Sixers. Whiteside will be guarded by Jahlil Okafor, and he should be able to dominate in that matchup. Whiteside is also very underpriced in my opinion at only $37. He's been crushing value lately, and he's been playing heavy minutes as well. So I really like Whiteside if you're looking to pay up. He should be able to dominate against Jahlil Okafor. And he's really cheap given this matchup. He shouldn't have a problem paying off that cheap price tag. Andre Drummond against the Pelicans. I don't think I'm going to go there. Drummond has actually been struggling lately, and his price really hasn't dropped any. If I'm wanting to pay up at center, I would much rather find the extra $3 and get to Whiteside, so I'm not going to be on Drummond on this slate. Rudy Gobert against Minnesota. Gobert is one guy you can look towards for cash games. He's just been one of the most consistent players all year. And he shouldn't have a problem paying off that $30 price tag. He always manages to hit value. So if you need a cash game center at the mid-range, I like Gobert. Brook Lopez against Sacramento, I really like that matchup as well. With no Boogie, Lopez should be able to dominate in this matchup. And he is pretty cheap as well at only $29. He shouldn't have a problem paying off that price tag. I also like Nikola Vucevic against the Knicks. Vuce is one of the most consistent players in the league, and he's really cheap as well at only $28. If you need a center at the mid-range for cash games, I really like Vuce. He shouldn't have a problem paying off that cheap price tag, and he does have a good matchup against the Knicks. The Knicks are bad defensively against the center. So if you need a mid-range cash game center, I like Vooch. He shouldn't have a problem paying off his price. Dwight Howard against Dallas. Don't think I'm going to go there. Dallas plays at a slow pace, and they're good defensively against the center. Al Horford against Cleveland. Don't think I'm going to go there either. Horford's really been struggling lately, and this is a bad matchup against Tristan Thompson. Tristan Thompson's a really good defender. DeAndre Jordan against the Rockets. I really like that matchup for Jordan. He's really cheap at only $25. He's been crushing value lately. So I also like DeAndre at the mid-range. He's just way too cheap, and he gets a really good up-and-pace matchup. He shouldn't have a problem paying off that price tag. Marcin Gortat against the Raptors. Don't think I'm going to go there. If I'm wanting to attack that price range, I'll just find the extra $2 to get to Jordan. Miles Turner against San Antonio. Not going to go there either. That's a really bad matchup. Mason Plumlee against Milwaukee. That's a good matchup for Plumlee, but he's been really inconsistent lately, so I don't think I'm going to be on him. I like Paul Gasol on the cheaper end at only $19. This is a really good matchup against the Pacers. They're terrible defensively against the center. Gasol's minutes have been a little inconsistent since he returned from injury, In his 2 games back from injury, he's only played 26 and 19 minutes, but he still managed to put up 35 and 28 fantasy points. Gasol's really cheap at only $19, so if you need a center on the cheaper end, I like him. This is a really good matchup against the Pacers. He shouldn't have a problem paying off that price tag. Also like Greg Monroe against Denver, this is a really good up and pace matchup, and Denver really struggles defensively against the center. I do worry about Monroe's minutes though. His minutes have been a little inconsistent. He has played over 30 minutes in 3 of his last 5 games, but in 2 games he's only played 21 and 19 minutes. But this is a really good up and pace matchup against the Nuggets, so I like Monroe if you need a cheaper center. Another cheap center I like is Willie Cauley-Stein against the Nets. Cauley-Stein has had to step up and play heavy minutes ever since Boogie got traded. In his 3 games after the trade deadline, he's played 35, 28, and 34 minutes and put up 40, 11, and 28 fantasy points. If you need a cheaper center, I like Cauley-Stein in this matchup. This is a terrific matchup against Brooklyn. They're terrible defensively, and they play up in pace. So I like Cauley-Stein at the cheaper end at only $14. He shouldn't have a problem paying off that price tag against the Nets. And that's pretty much it for center. I'm going to go ahead and give you guys my starting 5. Alright guys, so this is my starting 5 for the NBA slate on Wednesday, March 1st. My starting 5 is a combination of some of my favorite value plays along with some of my favorite studs. I'm really liking DeRozan and Griffin on the expensive end. At the mid-range, I'm liking Marcus Morris at small forward. And I also like Corey Joseph and Cauley-Stein as value plays. If you guys want my full updated lineup before lock, be sure to hit me up on Twitter at the DFS_GOAT. Like I said earlier, the prices that I came up with in yesterday's video, those prices aren't set in stone. So if you want to negotiate prices for my full lineups, we can talk them over on Twitter. So give me a follow on Twitter and message me and we can work things out. But yeah, I really appreciate you guys watching the video. Please be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed. If you never want to miss out on a video, please be sure to click the bell icon next to my YouTube name and you'll get notifications whenever I upload. But yeah, thanks for watching guys, and we'll see you in tomorrow's video. Peace.
Then we sleep through day, then we play all through the late night. Sleep through day, then we play all through the late night.